Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV Radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. We're sorry about that dead silence. We were disconnected from the radio show. You're listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission Radio. If you are still hanging in there after 4 minutes of nothing. Today is June 14th, 2017. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. And I want to thank you for hanging in there with us. We are obviously not some big highfalutin radio show with big gigantic towers. We deal on the internet, and as such, we kind of have to deal with it that way, and sometimes you'll catch some dead silence. I want to thank you for joining us today. We have a returning friend of our show and a friend of mine that I met through the YouTube, Glen Woodford, a really awesome human being and a great thinker. So Glenn, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you, Lonnie. That was a great intro, and I appreciate everything you just said. You're a
Well,
great friend to me, too.
yeah, that has been one of the really good things. Let me let her know. Let me let the producer know. And Jules, if you are listening, cayenne pepper really is a good little help for you. So, anyways, we've had kind of a shock of a morning with the police getting shot. It's today's Flag Day. This is the reason Glenn and I booked him for today so we could be on Flag Day. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm waving the black flag. A lot of people may give me a little bit of flack for that, but the black flag it just represents the absence of a flag. And, it's in opposition of the countercept of the representation of the flag that they've turned their own people against them. The American flag, to stand up and salute the American flag, if you go back, it's all wrapped around nationalism. And actually, when it first started, they said when they made the flag, "Hail to the King, the new prince." So it all ties back to the royals and colonization and nationalism. So the black flag to me is a representation of, I'm not going to stand up and represent a flag that they've turned me against. All the corruption, all the things that are going on right now in this time and place. When I came up, when I was a kid, I remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would go home and I would ask my father, what exactly does it represent? And even then, of course, that was the Reagan era. And he even told me, he was like, you don't have to stand up and pledge allegiance to that flag, because that flag represents us taking over places for their natural resources. And can we even believe the state of this place that we're in right now? Like you said, you got people shooting the whip of the president, which who knows what that means on Flag Day.
He's the whip of the house. He's the whip of the house.
Right.
Yeah,
yes,
well, we do. This is the thing, though. People are angry. This is how they get the militarized police rolled down the street. They get people angry, and then they stand on their. I mean, really, literally, a few months ago, when Trump got elected, you can see it clear as day. This is Pinochet 2.0. The CIA learned their lesson and have rolled out a much smoother, much easier plan for people to swallow than what they did in Chile. That was kind of a crude way of forcing neoliberal ideas on people. Now they've slicked down the process. And there are actually people out there who believe that Donald Trump is going to stop, quote, Pedogate, that Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions are going to get the child molesters out of the deep state, as if the deep state is not part of Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump. Like, they are part of the deep state. That's why they're there. The deep state doesn't put anybody in who's not one of them.
Exactly. And they're all put in place long ago. You hate to go off what Putin says, but he said to the Megyn Kelly of our what we call late night news now.
Our liberal media.
Yeah, and he says, we know what's going to happen in America. The politics and the direction is not going to change. So even other countries know this. And this whole Russian thing, I mean, we've always known that they haven't been the greatest of friends, but look what's going on in our own country. And everybody always says that, and people are getting tired of it.
Look, Glenn, the Russian thing.
There's almost a lunacy happening, and they're going to push us to a point to where you back a dog in a corner and he's going to bite, because mutts, they bite too. Mutts bite back. And that's the
This
way
whole
that they
thing,
see
what's
us, as
gotten lost
much.
in all of this thing about the Russian thing, it's really just again, it is Pinochet 2.0. What people are forgetting about the Russia collusion is there's details that we have never been told about how they found out about Russia.
Right.
And this whole thing about Russians trying to change our elections and all this stuff, that's one story. The second story is the fact that
But
Donald
do you
Trump.
believe that? Do you
Yeah,
believe
I
that,
do.
Lonnie?
Oh, yeah. You know what I believe, Glenn? I've said this on the radio show a couple times. I really believe that it was the Democrats who approached the Russians to help them hack the machines so that it couldn't be found out. They knew the Russians wouldn't talk. So I think they went to the Russians to try to hack the machines to get Bernie, to make sure Bernie would never be nominated. And then the Russians said, "Ah, thank you very much for showing us how to do it." And then they started reversing it and attacking both of them. Like, they did go after them. The Republicans, however, refused. They had a much better IT person and they were able to block them. So
Right.
why is that? Like, so this is the thing that when I read that story, that's the thing that made me start thinking, I'll bet you 2 to 1 the Democrats hired them, and then they reversed it around on them. And I think, but there's two stories. There's one story about the Russians hacking we have proof of that. I mean, this is the thing. The NSA listens to every freaking phone call. They detail, they know exactly this whole thing of we got to find out what's going wrong. That's bullshit. We
Right.
already know. They could track
Yeah.
every single phone call, every single email.
Well,
This whole
yeah, they,
thing. But
yeah,
then there's two things. And then we have Trump, who has been making money and is in a position of being blackmailed by the Russians. That's a real story also. So there's
but
two stories. One
it's,
is the election, and one is why won't see. It's so obvious. Trump's whole team, Trump's team contacted the Russians the day that Obama put the sanctions in place. The day before the sanctions were put in place, what happened in Russia? Rex Tillerson signed a deal with the Russians for the biggest oil deal ever signed in history. The next day,
exactly.
unfortunately, because of politics, Obama decided to spank the Russians. So now we have the Trump transition team, the Trump team, talking to and look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist for us all to hear the conversations. Don't worry, as soon as we're elected, we're going to reverse those things. And in fact, less than 6 months later, they are doing that. They are working to relieve those things. This Exxon oil deal is going to go through unless Trump gets ousted from office, which is why they're kicking and screaming, not showing his tax returns. He's refusing to abide by the emoluments clause. All these leaks with Flynn, the conversation with Sessions. I mean, the things that compile on, it's kind of like denying 9/11 was an inside job, in my view. It's so freaking up. But then again, Glenn, I actually think that Trump is an inside job. I think that the whole thing is a shakedown. We do not have control at all of our elections. What we're seeing is just the denouement. We're coming up to the conclusion of a very long story because the elites have they enjoy the long story. So
well,
we
and what
had a
what
long
what's
story.
the more things change, the more they stay the same. And Obama runs and hides, and what's going to happen is they're going to implode on themselves. They're going to start eating each other because that's what rats do. That's what the scum do. But it's just the order of the day. That's they're going to push people to the point of just like you said before, the whole Nixon, the resemblance, the mirror image. This is all toting the line right along with that. It's mirrored, but all this going on, people in America, they're glued to it and they want to find out. And in reality, none of it almost matters when you consider what's going on in our country. There's so many problems in our country, and Trump's never going to speak about it. Tillerson's never going to speak about it. Sessions never going to speak about it. But we have a situation in Hanford right now where the radioactive, it's leaking out onto the sidewalks. radioactive rail cars and Fukushima hammering us all the time. It's
Look, why do you think he put in Rick Perry? There is a reason he put Rick. He nominated God. Rick Perry, who oversaw the largest nuclear waste spill in our country's history in Texas. And when that became a disaster, he was not reelected. That's a large portion of why the people in Texas hated him, the way he handled that nuclear waste thing. Right. And guess where he went after he was not reelected? He went to sit on the board of the company who spilled the waste. Right. And Donald Trump hired him. And he has a degree in husbandry, not energy.
But it's just like a poke in the chest and a middle finger to our face. All these things they're doing. It's so designed, and if you look at it, it's just a storyline. The plot thickens every day by the moves that they make.
Glenn, this is how the Nazis really, when we're talking about Nazis in Berlin, the reality is there are people who believe 100% that Donald Trump is a good guy and Jeff Sessions is a good guy. They really believe it. And Jeff Sessions has been a racist, bigoted. I've often wondered how many people he's personally murdered, because he can look at you straight in the face and lie to you and look at you and act. I mean, the telltale sign about him is his indignance. When he looks at you and gives you that face, you can catch him. He gets caught. This is how, honestly, it's so in our face right now. But you know why they don't care who knows, Glenn?
Why?
In my view, because they know there's so much contamination, there is not going to be an uprising because people are sick. People are going to start dying of heart. People are going to start getting, and it's not just cancers, and it's endocrine problems, it's heart problems. Heart problems are very common. And by the way, and I'm not a doctor, but I know this works. You can actually, if you're having a heart attack, take some cayenne pepper. If you feel any chest pains, go to the doctor, but take some cayenne pepper and some vitamin C, 5,000 milligrams and cayenne pepper. Because, have some cayenne tablets. If you don't have tablets, you can take it too. But that's besides the point. Now, that's just natural healing stuff that's being suppressed. But the reason I suggest it is a lot of people are going to start having medical conditions. And I'm a big proponent of vitamin C. I think that it is one of the best ways we can protect ourselves is with high levels of vitamin C. And the real information is being suppressed because you know what? They want us weak. A well-informed, healthy populace can't help but be engaged because you love your life. You love living.
But the ones that go ahead and march towards the future, when as they say, the natives turn, when we turn on them and we have them and we're showing our muscle and we're showing our teeth, that's when the war comes, because that's exactly what they do every single time. They pose a threat, a severe threat, and a war comes. And we forget all about it. We got to band together.
Well, no, this is the deal here, Glenn. I've never seen, people like to blame our government for these wars, right? Well, they always get us into war. Who goes to war? Our children. So no, it's not they send us to war. The American people are a warring nation. Until people speak out against war and say, I'm not sending my sons. I'm going to do everything I can to talk my child. I'm going to give him every bit of information so he can make an informed decision, because he is being sent over to a place to protect assets for a bank, whatever those assets are. And he's considered an asset on a balance sheet. This country has based its entire history, I might add, on the war machine. We expanded across America. You know what that meant? We murdered people. Our country, the war machine, the war profiteering. If we had been like the Europeans and come to the United States and said, okay, we're going to abide by our neighbors' borders, because that's kind of what happens in Europe. Everybody has borders. See, this is what happened in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union said, we're becoming one, just like the United States did the same thing. These superpowers. Right. People choose to do it, though. So the Russians, they like being Russians. Us Americans, we like being Americans. The Canadians, people pick their borders. Okay, so let's just get to that point. At what point are we going to stop war profiteering? $10 trillion, the Pentagon I cannot stop talking about this. $10 trillion. The country is in debt like $560 billion. We'd still have almost $500 million left. If they just gave us $1 trillion of those dollars. Why are we doing this? And you know why? Because a few people get to be super rich.
Oh, it's all about the power and the money. And
they talk about the money. See, this is the thing. They make us believe that if we're not building weapons, oh my God, then what are we going to do with all these big war machines? It's like, that's a good question. What are you going to do with those big buildings and those big offices? What kind of businesses are you going to build there when those war machines shut down?
Most of it, they're going to keep storing and producing nuclear waste for these war machines and these war profiteers, because that's what exactly, if you follow the trail, it's always the money. My place right here, $2.5 billion. Right. $2.5 billion. And then after 10 years, they get another $743 million.
Have you looked up the average wages? Have you looked up the average wages for those people?
It's not enough. It's not enough for those dummies to go in there, because.
Do you know what the average income is in Paducah, though? Like for the people that work there compared to the rest of the people in Paducah?
Oh, it's astronomical. They're way ahead.
Yeah, they probably nobody works at that plant for less than $100,000, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And they're flying in and out of there. And I had an interview set up with some with the family out there that lived 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the plant. And their child, he's 7 months old, but he was born with a huge balloon head. I mean, it's one of the biggest I've ever seen. And they're in such denial that plant caused it. That
you know what you need to do? Bring this to the parents. They don't believe it, right?
No. They think I'm crazy, actually. But they agreed to an interview at first, but with heavy heart, I'd say that they think he's fixing to pass away, and he got flown to Vanderbilt. So it shut that down, but they're in complete and total denial. Just like on Memorial Day, we was at a family picnic. My uncle worked out there, and he died of brain cancer. And, of course, they said it was genetics, and they didn't pay out anything because of that reason. But the family gathering, somebody started talking about my YouTube videos and me being out there and protesting, and this gentleman was standing off to the side, and come to find out reason he was there is my aunt, which is, my uncle's wife, invited him because they still know people that worked out there and everything. She's in denial. She don't believe it. And he walks over to me and he says, listen, I overheard what was being said. He said, I have high respect for that place out there. I don't have any type of cancers. My kids don't have any mutations or anything. And he told me, he said, if you keep going out there, you will either stop or you will be stopped. And he kind of just, faded away into the crowd. I was sitting there stunned. And
you should put up a protest sign that said, I was threatened to stop protesting.
Right.
By someone in the community. Just put it like that. Just put it like that. Just you need to make a video about that. You need to be public, Glen. I'm glad that you're here on the air talking about it. Have you made your own video on that?
I did a short one the other day, and it was leading up to this interview with this family. Of course, that got cut short.
Yeah, of
Um, I'm,
course. And
I'm,
you can't even go there with them right this right now. But you know what I suggest
what's that?
is send them some information about Chernobyl and their babies. Send them
Right.
information that has been
Well,
documented for many years.
well, it hits home close to me, Lonnie, because we're maybe 3.5, somewhere in that vicinity, 7 miles from the place. In every place, you're downwind from it, regardless which, however
Yeah,
you
but
want
the
to talk about it.
proximity
And
to it is much
I,
closer.
I, I was born with a double clef and, palate. And my uncle, being around us, he would wear those clothes home. Sometimes they
Wow.
babysit. My mom would be around them.
Yeah.
They would babysit my sisters. And, my video proves it was done a while ago, but they would just the stuff that was on the floor, they would just take a fire hose and just spray it outside into a drainage ditch. And of
Yeah.
course, I keep spewing about it, but it's right across the street from the wildlife refuge. And out front, the Department of Energy, they have the audacity to put up solar panels to run their lights on their little box um, boxwoods out there, and their little sign. And
Wow.
it's just a slap in the face to someone like me that's around here. But then you take that little chunk and that little piece of my little armpit of the world, Paducah, and magnify it by 10 million fold, because this is going on all around our country. Indian Point, Hanford, what's going on right now. Everybody, the denial of Fukushima is dwindling somewhat, but it is happening in our country. And that's why I would go back and say I will fly the black flag, because the platform that people have in certain powers and in entertainment, even the platform that they have is so great, and yet they turned a blind eye to their own people and their own brothers and their own sisters and their own kids and their own grandkids. And if that's the order of the day, that's why I go back and I say there's going to be a pushback. There's going to be a pushback, and I think I'll see it in my lifetime. And then you can get into what will happen after that, because they
Well,
cannot
Glenn, I think
handle.
we are the
They.
pushback. I think we are the
I
pushback.
know,
And I
and
think that we can refuse to be violent. We can protect ourselves, but we can refuse to be like them, and we can call them out and we can change that behavior, because you know what? This is too grave. We cannot fight ourselves to life. We have to stop being ridiculous and start being adults and going, wow, man, we really polluted the planet the last 100 years.
well,
And
make
wow,
no
our
mistake
country
about it.
really is a war machine. So how are we going to stop it? We're not going to put the
Right.
brakes on overnight, but we can refuse to participate by getting into the cycle of violence with them. We can
And
choose to
I say
assert our rights.
I say stand and fight. And a lot of people has commented on the
You know
fight
what I
part.
say?
And by no means, make no mistake about it, I am not talking about gathering guns up, bunkering down, and fighting that way. They rule us. They can decimate us, but they can't handle in America what Koreans are doing, and in China, the hundreds of thousands protests. They can't handle that here. They will cause something if it. And you know what? I hate to say it, Lonnie, but that will never happen in America, because they're too fixed on their Walmart trinkets and their McDonald's and their Jeff Sessions looking into the camera and getting mad because somebody pushed back on him.
So, Glenn, you know what my response to that is? That's victim blaming. These people have been gaslit and beaten up so badly. They're sick. They're ill. They do not know how to they have never been taught culture. They've never been taught to how to live themselves. Like, this whole country has just been,
Culture is a big part.
look, it's the war machine. Until people really start speaking about this, we have just got to decide if we're going to we don't have a choice. We live on the planet. You know what I mean? We have to just
Right.
decide we're going to not participate. I mean, I personally didn't believe in the Iraq War. My sister got very upset with me because I told her she should convince her sons to be conscientious objectors. Honestly, unless we are being attacked, you shouldn't. It's so outrageous what they do to our sons, and then they wonder why our country has issues. We throw our young children at war, and just the whole mentality of it. And now we don't have a high level of them in war, but
and make them believe that they're heroes and that they're protecting us from the boogeyman, and they're conditioned that way, and it's really sad. It's really sad. The place.
Well, this is why I liked how the water protectors faced off against their aggressors. They just said, "We love you." They just stood there in a wall of love and started blessing them. It was too much. They ended up just going away because they weren't going to do it, And then they did strategic attacks and attacked certain people. I mean, they terrorized those people.
But Lonnie, we're insane here. I mean, we got scientists coming out and
look. I'm going to reject that language. We're not insane. Let's forget the crazy, insane words. This is treasonous. It's murder. It's deception. Science cannot just kill people as scientific experiments on mass scale or without consent.
Well, right, and I understand where you're going with that, but. Think of how crazy this is.
It's not crazy, Glen. Every time you say that word, I'm going to stop you. Pick a different word because it's not crazy. It's intentional.
Well, maybe, but
you mean irrational?
To the extreme. Scientists conduct study of inoculating people to believe against certain climate change regards. Studies were carried out as means of combating the existing information and disinformation that challenges the scientific consensus over the risk of climate change. They're actually using vaccines to try to get people to believe in climate change, which I'm not a denier of that. There's something definitely going on. My garden is completely freaking out. It'll be 60 at night and then 90 in the day, so... But I'm right there with you. The crazy, the could we call the lunacy? Is it a lunacy?
No, it's greed and power. It's control. How do you get the masses to do it? Everyone uses that word.
Control.
We are being propagandized, gaslit. We are until people get this, it is time for human beings to stand up.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm asking.
Eyes to the sky. That's why I love Glen has this phrase on his videos, you guys. If you don't follow him, you're missing out because his videos are awesome. Glen Woodford on YouTube. So it's GlenWoodFord, just like it sounds, Glen Woodford. But his YouTube, and at the end, he always says, "Eyes to the sky." I love that.
Well, and you have to be that way, and that's what I was asking. That's the only thing I'm asking is where is the pushback? I know we are the resistance.
Well, you know why?
We're gaining ground, but
because we are motivated by LOVE, love. We're motivated by love. The other people are living in fear.
But is it okay? Is it okay to get pissed off? Because I'm telling you right now, Lonnie, I am
natural. It's a natural response. But what you have to do is lean into love. That's what I mean. I hate to be all Christian about it, but this is what Jesus taught us. To when you, and this is the other thing. Even
And that's corrupt.
Like Pema Chodron. I bought a book called How to Live in Peace in Times of War when Bush went into Iraq, because I was very like, how could they do this? It hurt me very badly. It hurts still to this day. I often cry when I see pictures. We just get pasted with pictures of the terror that our tax dollars is paying for. And I apologize. Right. I think we need to start speaking out and saying no to the war machine. And let's make the Pentagon accountable. Because if we did that, Glen, your community would have tax dollars to heal itself instead of continuing to build more. We could employ so many therapists with that we're still paying the money through our taxes. So if we get rid of the
figure out a
border,
better way. We can
we're going
figure
to
out a
need
better way,
medical
just like in,
facilities. We're going to need
but just like,
scientifics. We're going to need to
but
put money into our education system so we have a bunch of scientific smart kids instead of like burnt out 20 years olds, like really bright kids who are super great and have nowhere to go, nothing to do and nowhere to go. That's what they're talking. That's $10 trillion taken away from our country's development, in my
well,
view.
and it's passed down through the lineage. I mean, our parents were programmed into believing a certain way, and it spawns off to us. But just this is what I'm saying, Lonnie. They gave $2.5 billion to the plant out here. In 10 years, they get $743 million. In Paducah, we have a homeless epidemic that's happening here. No one has jobs, and no one can find work. And
where did they used to work?
If we would put a drop of that into what needs to happen, the real decommissioning of these places. And I, for one, get discouraged a lot of times because I'm always looking for the pushback. I mean,
well, I have an idea you can do to push back. Document. Get yourself a little notebook and ask all the people that you help in the food kitchen that you go and volunteer in, the sweet
right.
person that you are. He goes and does this every week, right?
Right.
And ask them how many of them are ex-nuclear plant workers that worked out there or in some way was related to that industry or did subcontracting there.
Ask them.
And how many of them are sick and document their illnesses. You don't have to get to know their story. Just say, did you work there from what date to what date? And do you have any illnesses or any long-term chronic things? And when did it start? I'll bet you 2-1. They left there, and consequently, within 10 years, Larry Bergen started getting really sick. He worked there for a long time. All of a sudden, he started getting spots on his legs. So that's what's the start.
People here were growing things out of their shoulder blades, and I, for one, have seen deer out there that are severely mutated. But
have you taken pictures of them?
No. Well, when I seen the deer, me and some friends was out cruising the back roads. You know how that goes. But we have a commercial running in our local TV station right now that says, was you an atomic veteran? Did you help the Cold War? And they're telling them you can get free health care through this certain outlet because you're sick and you deserve it. And then they showed this big atomic city. We were called the Atomic City. And the guy stands up and he salutes the American flag. I mean, are these people really accepting this? I mean, it's like, I don't.
Yes, they are.
It's a lunacy. It's
a sales job. You should probably call that number, Glen, and see who they are. Check them out on the internet. My guess would be is they're not a real nonprofit,
right.
And that they are a corporation.
Right.
Because
but
that's
there
not.
Again,
I would be shocked if that was a government. Does it say paid for by the U.S. government? No.
But here, no, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: my aunt, which is my uncle, that died out there. She sees that commercial and she believes in it. She loves it and she likes it. When he died out there from brain cancer, she's another one that I've tried to talk to, and I've been labeled the conspiracist, tinfoil hat, crazy person.
Well, you know what you ought to do? You ought to get involved in getting your community rights. Community rights. CELDEF, Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund.org. Contact them and understand, just look at their website and see what they've done. I went to this democracy school.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a video, I think, about this. Did you hear it? It really, I can't stop talking about it because if you could you can come at, my thinking is with these, it's not that they don't want to be anti-nuclear. Nuclear's been their friend. I get this mentality. At a certain point, I mean, Heidi Lambert, lived in Hanford most of her life and didn't leave until the late 2000s.
Right.
So this is the thing. We have to understand they're not enemies. They're not stupid. They're not traitors. I mean, all these adjectives that, but what they are is uninformed. And they are so brainwashed and so gaslit, Glenn. Like your poor little cousin with their baby. Like that is sad. That is super sad about them losing their baby like this. They've had to live with their baby like this. They thought he'd be fine because they've seen kids that have been able to live like that.
Right.
And so now
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Lonnie. What is it going to take? Hanford, that's happening. That's happening Westlake, and people, what they do is, no offense to them, because I do it too, and we do it in our own way, but they throw a little Facebook link on there and see how many likes they get and spread the word, of course. But I'm tired of Facebooking. I'm tired of that.
Then get your community
Where's the pushback? Where's the pushback?
Look, you don't need a lot of pushback. Do you know our entire way of life, when everything that most of the time it only takes a few people to change it. It's not a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
It's us. We're it. This is why I'm saying you want pushback, community rights. You want to be able to assert the rights. When people have rights against a corporation, they are more likely to stand up.
Right.
It's like my daughter, when that guy that stabbed those two people in the heart and slashed that guy up in Portland.
Right.
She called me crying because that guy a few years ago had stalked her, and she didn't call the police because he stalked several of her girlfriends and they did nothing. So she stopped calling the police. She felt guilty. And I'm like, no, they still wouldn't have done anything. It's not your fault. Like, really, he's a lunatic. So, but this whole thing, this is what I mean by victim blaming. And I think we need, with community rights, this is why I think the way to get through to these nuclear people is we can assert our rights to a healthy environment. And you can get your community to agree to that. That's something they will agree. You can get them involved with community rights. Start a petition so that you can get the whole community, the city council, to say, yeah, we have a right to clean air and a healthy life, considering everything that might be happening from outside over there, not the nuclear plant, but somewhere else. And we're going to get a little Bill of Rights that says we have rights, these certain rights. When you get that at the city level, you can get the state to pass it. And if you get enough people to sign a petition, they'll do it.
Right, but
and then,
okay.
And then
so how many?
Then you can go after the polluters and have equal standing, because the community now has equal standing as citizens of that community. So
is that happening? Is that happening right now?
I say you should contact CELDEF, community it's CELDEF.
But I mean anywhere in Hanford.
Yes. You want to know what, out here in Oregon? And this was a big deal. It had just passed, like the weekend before I went to this thing. It was a big deal. The city of Newport, Oregon, has passed an ordinance that says no more aerial spraying above us. It was the first, and they cannot do aerial spraying around Newport or in their wind area. So there's like a little parameter. So
yeah, they got that.
So it's like, really, to be honest, it was like a huge win, because this is the first time a community, there have been times a few communities have asserted their, but you have to lay the background. You want to, I think I shared this. So I'm telling you, Glenn, that can be our pushback, because you live in a community affected by it, and people there, you live 3 miles away. To be honest, if I were you, I would get my kids, their mom's family, everybody that far away from where you live, at least another 15, 20 miles out at least.
Right.
I mean, the fact that you don't see it in your children, Helen Caldecott says in humans, we don't see the worst until 4 to 8 generations down the line from nuclear pollution. That's what the studies show. 4 to 8 generations. So, okay, your grandchildren are okay. You're like, oh, good, I can die and feel guilt-free. And then your children can die. Oh, I can die, I feel guilt-free. And then their children have children, and they're like, oh, we must have it in genetics.
Exactly.
This is what they're counting.
Environmental stress.
Hey, Glenn, what do you think of my idea? I think that the reason they're lying to us about the nuclear is this was all started by the same eugenicists. And they really, look, it's too late. We're all contaminated. This is why you're angry. They've had this grand experiment to see if they can create a master race of humans. And oops, it's too late. We're really over the line. You think that this is just intentional to trying to create like a master race?
I'm not so sure about that. It's intentional to kill us because they want the population to drop dramatically. But the thing about it, like I always say, why are they doing it so slowly? Is it so they can hide under the radar and people just believe that leukemia and heart problems and mutations are just the way things are supposed to be?
It's wealth and power. That's why.
Absolutely.
They're using us. It's like the win-win-win. They make us sick. They get us in. First thing is you go into a hospital where the mother and the child loses their rights entirely. And then they can make us sick and inject us or do whatever they want with us. And then they destroy our food supply. And then we need them. So our entire lives, we're working for them and giving them our money.
Yep.
That's their plan. Well, that's not our plan. We can change it. And this is one of the ways that we can do it is assert our community rights.
But do you think this? Do you think it is designed for us to be so dumbed down and not be able to be organized, and people just believe in, like I said, their Walmart trinkets and they go along with their daily lives? Do you think that was designed? Do you think that was designed to keep us docile like that? Because, like I said, they could not handle what they do in China, and I know you say it isn't the huge masses of people, but they know that they can't handle a resistance like that. So generation after generation has been dumbed down to think, and think about it. Anytime you speak out on anything like this, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist or a tinfoil hat wearer or whatever, when in reality, people don't want to think outside of their box, which has been created by the powers that be. And the ones that are, and I know a lot of people don't like the word waking up, but damn it, the ones that are waking up can make a change now, right now. And your ideas are good about doing through legislation and community gathering. I'd love to see the communities go back to where you knew everybody and you had.
Glen, you know what though? It's not about. It's not just about the community rights. It's about whatever. You're right. It is. It's. I think maybe it has been a waking up. I think the tsunami in Fukushima shook all of us.
Right.
I think at a spiritual level, it went ka-clink, and some of us have not gotten back over the shock.
I remember seeing it live on TV. Like I said, I worked city government. We was happened to be in the break room. It might have been lunchtime, but we seen the water and the coma, and then it actually showed the plant, the smoke coming out of it, and all the people around me. I said, "This is catastrophic. This is going to be catastrophic." And the ones around me were saying, thinking, "Yeah, that water is going to cause a lot of damage." That's what they were saying. So
they don't understand. See, people have no concept. That's why do you think they called it? Helen Caldicott talks about this. She said, "Why do you think they called it a plant? To make it sound good, not so bad. It's a plant."
Right. We got it.
It's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
Carl Grossman talks about it in his book also. This is kind of these look, we know what they're doing. It's just a matter of they've done it. It's not what they're doing. They've done it. It's like, okay, how do we claw our way out now that we're in? And I say the way to lean into it is, there's going to be a resistance, but I think we need to resist the violence. I think we need to start talking about why we're in this mess, and it is the war machine. $10
Well,
trillion dollars the Pentagon cannot account for. That is outrageous. $10 trillion.
well, there's a saying that I say, and it's reality is getting too unpredictable, but where the unpredictable times calls for what? The reliable friend. And who is that? Because like you just said, we know it. We're seeing it. Does it matter how it all started? Now, to this point, does it matter how it's going to end? Well, I say yeah. Because the majority of the people, they do think like that. Well, it's happening and nothing's really happening right now, but they don't dig and they don't research and they don't see the mutations and the heart problems and the cancer. They don't want to believe it.
Well, what's sad is they
have in their Walmart trinkets and what
they have these diseases. Diabetes is off the chart. Dr. Goffman and Dr. Tamplin 100% unequivocally showed that low-level radioactive contamination, one of the first things that appears in children and adults is diabetes, period. So we have a diabetes, and it's all part of, we've all been told, it's the blame the victim. It's what you're eating. It's what you're doing to yourself. It's you're doing it. No, we live in a radioactive, chemically polluted environment in the United States of America, at least. I don't know. Other countries haven't been there.
Two of the girls, after, my two sisters, they had two girls, and both of those two girls have thyroid problems. One of them is getting pretty serious. Now, here we go again. We live right by that place. But yet, that side of the family, it's genetics, it's the way it's supposed to be, and they go along with their lives. And gladly and thankfully, there are people out here like me and you, and Kevin Blanche and Thomas Ackerman and all of us. Yeah. All of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw Kevin on YouTube, and that's when I asked him to come out here to Eugene. And I have to say, that first event that he was here was a kick in the pants. It was the same 30 people who showed up, all the peaceniks who usually show up at all the stuff in Eugene. And it was this, it was like, she was like, well, I don't like your attitude. This old lady, she's like, we've been working hard to say, and it's true. What's happened is, when I first got into this, I was really angry. I was just like Kevin. I thought nobody spoke out. But you know what? People who speak out nobody gets heard. We're in a sound chamber. I thought of this one night, like how Donna Gilmore often talks about how we have put our nuclear waste in 3/8-inch thick containers, and now they're super safe because we're double doing it. We're doing it double. That's only, like the maximum. It's so inadequate when you consider in Europe they put them in 18 to 25-inch thick caskets and build a building around them and secure them very well, right? But I was thinking how in the United States they have switched that around. They've put the American people into the containers with those super 18-inch to 25 thick walls and a building around it, and put the waste into the thin containers.
Wow. Well, like you were saying about the suppression, I've protested out there, and I had one sign that said depletion is no difference, and the other sign right beside it said you're dying. Want to find out why? And I've got stuff thrown at me. I've been cussed. Not one person wanted to find out why I was there, what I was doing. And I do think a lot of it, going back to what you said, they make so much money out there that it
not only that, they're lied to.
Economy. It helps fuel the economy around here. But the thing about it is that justification enough for all this stuff that's happening? But yet people, the majority of the people, will not open their eyes to that fact. And you're right. I'm going to have to start hitting it even harder and let my voice be heard And if we can change the mind of one person, I
Look,
think
you
that
know
we've
what I
done
would
our
love for
job.
you to do, Glenn? I would really love for you to talk to the homeless guys and make a journal. Just ask like maybe 50 guys if they wouldn't
Oh,
mind.
well, when I'm at that soup kitchen, don't think for a minute that I haven't talked about Fukushima and all
Well,
these
ask
different
them how
things.
many of them are ex-nuclear workers.
Right.
Do
Yeah,
you
I
know if
should.
there's
I
any of them
should.
there? And then because I bet you a lot of them are, because this is the reason why I've thought of this. Because this is how we can get people to change their minds about it. Look, a lot of those, but this is we decry what goes on in Fukushima. They're hiring the homeless. This is nothing new. When there's
Right.
emergencies, and these people, what happens is they get good qualified people to work
Mm,
there, and then when they get sick, they discard them. And a lot of those discarded people become homeless because their medical bills, their whole they just like fall into the wayside. I mean, Heidi was talking to us about her dad, how his life just got horrible when he started getting sick, and the drugs they were giving him was making him like really crazy. It was just like horrendous.
mm.
So I'm just curious to see if you could document that. I would bet $1 million that you will find a lot of workers in the soup kitchen
And
that
that's
have
probably true.
medical conditions that they're not talking about.
Well, and it's a vast variety. It's a lot of veterans, and the
Uh,
other side of the coin is 30-year-olds. And that's really sad, 30-year-olds. But it goes back to what I said. People, they have traded their bleached blonde hair for bleached coral reefs. It's I
yeah, well,
wish
you know
so
what's really
much that I
sad
would
though,
have
Glenn?
grew up. I wish so much I would have grew up in the '60s because I would have. Oh my God, man, that would have been in heaven.
Huh. Maybe
They
you
at
were in
least
heaven.
they.
Maybe this is you coming back and living. I mean, maybe this is your mantra. Maybe you died in the Vietnam War and you came back and said, okay, I'm going to really pick it up this time.
Right, right. Well,
Right,
and
for
and
real.
and let me ask you this. This isn't selfish. I'm not talking about a selfish thing, but do you feel better inside every day that you do these radio shows, or you tell somebody about Fukushima, or you do your part? Do you feel better?
Better. I don't know. I wouldn't say that I feel better, but I feel like I'm uh, uh, feel of responding to my spirit. These are not easy things to face. It's a little bit heartbreaking to see, but this is why I'm excited about community rights. It's a crack in the window and how we can maybe take it back and change the paradigm. I think that the way out of this is through nonviolence, through transformation, through leaning into it, refusing to be part of the war machine, talking out about it, and allowing the people that are wrapped up in that machine to vision themselves in a different way working, because we need scientists. We need people to go to school. We need to figure this stuff out. We're going to spend the same amount of money in tax dollars, so let's do it a different way. Instead of,
Right.
feeding the war machine, let's feed the science machine and heal our planet. And we do
Well,
not have to murder, death, kill. And we don't have to go to the guillotines for the people that have been the perpetrators. Just like stop. If you stop, we're good.
right.
So we have about
Well,
30 seconds, or I guess so. Glenn, you've been listening to Glen Woodford and Lonnie Clark talk about, you've been listening.
everything.
How to change the paradigm, because I want us to be the policy entrepreneurs, as they are called. We need to be the ones setting the agenda, and the murder, death, kill routine has gotten the planet on a wounded leg. We're limping bad.
But there is hope.
Yeah, and we are the hope. And that's why I say put your courage feet in, lean into it, and take action. And follow your gut. Like Carl Grossman said, whatever it is you believe you can do, even if you think you can't do it, just say yes to yourself. Finally, we need every person to lean into it and get active and follow
Right,
your heart. So we'll talk to you
right.
guys tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.